The KelTec P17 it's fine. It's okay. And after a healthy break-in period, mine runs like an absolute champ. I did have some issues with the sights, namely not being able to adjust enough to find a proper point of aim. My gun always hit high. I just didn't have much need for it compared to like a Taurus TX22 or a SIG P322, but it was cheap, and ultimately I figured it was a gun likely just to sit in the back of my safe and be unused until one day I decided to sell it. That was until I saw the FarrowTech FT17 PDW kit. I'm sure you've seen PDW kits before, things like the Flux Defense. Well, the FT17 PDW kit is kind of like the Flux Defense kit in the same way that like a Smith & Wesson M&P 22 is like an AR-15. So the FT17 PDW kit breathes some new sense of life into this odd and fairly standard 22 long rifle handgun. The FarrowTech kit transforms your little P17 into a poor man's MP7. The FT17 kit keeps the overall profile very small, but creates a viable and handy micro-sized 22 long rifle platform. It's probably the cheapest way to obtain a PDW type firearm. Now the P17 is already a cheap little gun, often easy to find for less than $200 if you're willing to shop around a little bit. The FT17 kit comes in various configurations, each with its own price point. The configuration you see here is the FT17 Pro kit with the aluminum steady brace. The standard kit lacks the magazine holder that you see positioned in front of the pistol. Now this setup retails for $285, so you can, if you shop around, you can get a full PDW for less than $500, but it will be in 22 long rifle. The FT17 kit is primarily made from polymer and appears to have been constructed through additive manufacturing, which is the fancy word for 3D printing. Now, typically we use additive manufacturing to describe like high-end 3D printing. This isn't a kit that's just built by a couple of guys on an Ender 3, and I have to assume they're using some high-end commercial-grade machines. I'm only a hobbyist when it comes to 3D printing. You know, I print a lot of articulated toys, but not much else. But to me, the work on the FT17 seems fantastic. It's a very sturdy system. Now, the brace rails are metal and do smoothly slide in and out of the FT17 kit. There's a good bit of movement and wiggle to the brace rails, and if you've ever fired anything with a PDW style brace or stock, you kind of know what to expect. Even things like the HK-MP5 with its wiggly wire stock, it's a lot like that. You really have to kind of bear down on it to take the wiggle out. Installation was quick and easy. KelTec's use of screws for everything plays a role in the installation of the kit. You have to remove 2 of KelTec's screws and replace them with screws that attach the kit to the gun. And then up front, a screw locks into the rails, and the entire kit comes together just really easily. I did it while suffering through Season 2 of The Last of Us, and didn't miss a story beat or a Marvel-style joke from a show that I used to love. Across the top, we do get a metal optics rail, which is a nice touch. A polymer rail would work, but would eventually get eaten up over time. A charging handle hooks to the slide and attaches under the kit's frame. It's a small tab that's easy to use to charge the weapon and fix malfunctions. Up front, there's plenty of room to install a suppressor and muzzle device. They kind of leave that hollowed out and easy to use. With the Pro kit, we have the magazine holder that friction fits a P17 mag in front of the gun. The magazine release and safety are still accessible with the kit locked in place. Even the micro-sized bolt release is easy to access, but the charging handle is really a better option for working the action. A red dot is a must-have for the FT17. I tossed a pistol red dot on a riser, and bam, I was ready to rock and roll. This is supposed to be a PDW, but the idea behind a PDW is that shooters can engage at distances beyond that of a normal handgun. And when I say engage, I don't just mean hitting the target, but hitting it with ease and quickly in all sorts of weird positions. Now I zeroed at 25 yards and immediately went it out to 50 yards and started lighting it up. It was very easy to hit an IPSC-sized piece of steel, which is a fairly large target, and I definitely should be able to hit it with this gun at this range. Knowing I could hit the IPSC-sized piece of steel, I turned to a row of gongs that vary from 8 to 4 inches or so. The 8 and 6 inch gongs were very, very easy to hit with the FT17. The 4 inch gong was a little more elusive, but if I slowed things down a fair bit, I could hit it. I really just had to kind of take my time. Luckily, 22 long rifle doesn't really make a gong move very much, so I could hit it repeatedly without the swinging kind of screwing me up. I also have a reduced sized IPSC target. I think it's 33% of a normal target, and I could keep that thing nothing but dinging. At 50 yards, the FT17 was a beast, but at 100 yards, it lost a little steam, but not too bad. The red dot and the shaky brace makes it a little tougher to hit smaller targets, but dinging the IPSC size steel target wasn't a problem, and I could make most of my hits on the 33% reduced size IPSC target. If I had to hit like a threat, I wouldn't have any problem doing that. I like going fast, and PDW should be able to go fast. You should be able to go faster with a PDW than a pistol. And the good thing about this gun is that it's a 22 long rifle pistol braced, so it's not hard to go fast. There is hardly any recoil. It's really negligible and will not affect your shooting. And there's no muzzle rise to speak of. Additionally, since the optic doesn't move like it would on a traditional handgun, you just always see the dot. So I was shooting through 16 round magazines that so quickly that it surprised myself. Like, I was surprised I was out of ammo already. I thought it felt like I'd shot maybe 10 rounds, but I'd drilled the target with 16. I shot a bill drill from the low ready and landed 6 rounds of 22 LR in 1.5 seconds. And I could go faster. I think I could, because I had the dot I'm using probably needs to sit a hair higher because sometimes I have trouble acquiring it. But even so, 1.5 seconds, 6 rounds into a IPSC sized A zone at 7 yards isn't bad. I almost felt like I was slowing myself down, expecting more recoil and the need for more control. It was only after I leaned into the American tradition of near uncontrolled mag dumping that I cut my time a little bit more and got down to the 1.47, 1.45 time range, and I never lost accuracy. Speaking of, I shot a ton of failure to stop drills with this rig, and it was like gliding over ice. It's so fast and easy to do. I barely have to see the dot before releasing a rapid double tap of 22 long rifle and finishing with that well-aimed headshot. Admittedly, reloads were a little awkward at first, and reloading from the front magazine pouch felt a little clumsy. Also, the P17 doesn't always release the magazine when you hit the magazine release. So what I've kind of figured out what I needed to do was hit the magazine release, strip the magazine out of the gun, grab the magazine from the front pouch, shove it in, tug on the charging handle, and start shooting. The friction fit magazine pouch never dropped a magazine while shooting, so there's no problem there, and it does release the magazine fairly easy. Give it a little kind of a sharp tug and boom, it's free. And that kind of leads us into the reliability conversation. Now, after I bought my P17, I had some issues. It wouldn't run very well, and that gun seems to require a break-in period. I had to shoot it a lot before I could drop 16 rounds out of the gun. So I was a little nervous that the kit would make the P17 unreliable because the gun already kind of had a history of being unreliable. But you can consider my worries abated. The P17 ran like a clock inside of the FT17 kit. I had 0 malfunctions as I shot through a brick of basic Blazer 22 LR, nothing fancy, and it worked fine. I went through 500 rounds without a problem related to the FT17. I had a few failures to fire, which tend to happen with rimfire cartridges, and I don't think that's an FTC I don't think that's a P17 problem. My P17 does have this weird issue where the slide becomes sluggish, and I can watch it slowly close on the next round. That problem seems to have disappeared with the FT17 kit installed. Now, admittedly, I can't really see the slide while shooting it, but I can never feel that sluggish nature or have a delay in my shooting, if that makes sense. So I don't know why the kit seems to fix that problem, or if I'm just imagining it and maybe it cleared up during the break-in period. Now, all the ergonomics work pretty well with the kit installed. The only one that doesn't work well is the slide release, which, if you've ever seen a P17, is tiny and annoying anyway. It's kind of hard to reach. You have to break down your position a bit to reach it, so it really just makes a lot more sense to use the charging handle, and there's never issue using the charging handle. Now, at first I thought there would be, because it is awfully skinny, and I do have this small fear of breaking it if I were too rough, but that hasn't been a problem, so maybe it's an unfounded fear. The D in PDW stands for defense, so PDW implies defensive use. While you certainly could use the FT17 as a defensive weapon, probably wouldn't be my go-to. I do think there is a place for 22 long rifle in the self-defense conversation, but if I'm going with a platform that's already bigger than a pistol, I probably want a centerfire caliber. I do think there could be a place for this kit among the recoil sensitive. It certainly has no recoil and packs a punch with 16 rounds of 22 long rifle on a very small and lightweight platform that could be easily equipped with a light red dot. If I was going to use this for self-defense, I'd probably use magazines full of either velocitors from CCI or Federal Punch as my defensive 22 long rifle of choice. Now, for me, and probably for most people, it's a fun gun. It's a PDW wannabe that's super cheap to shoot. It's a training and practice gun, and a gun and kit that invokes a certain cyberpunk styling that breaks it away from being boring. If you want something fun, different, and small, an FT-17 equipped P-17 can get it done. Now, with that said, if you want to use it for self-defense, go ahead, but really get out there and shoot that P-17 a lot to make sure it's not going to have a malfunction when you need it most. As always, I want to thank everyone for watching. I hope you have a great day. Is the FT-17 for you? Would you guys like me to chase down other guns that invoke a cyberpunk response? If so, let me know. I really appreciate all the comments, likes, shares. All that stuff is great. I have a great audience, I think. And I really want to thank everyone. So I'm pretty sure I've thanked you guys 5 times. Bye.